Very Bad Wizards is a podcast with a philosopher, my dad, and a psychologist, Dave Pizarro, having an informal discussion about issues in science and ethics. Please note that the discussion contains bad words that I'm not allowed to say, and knowing my dad, some very inappropriate jokes.
You know how I stayed alive this long? All these years. Fear. The spectacle of fearsome acts.
The David Masque has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have.
Pay no attention to that man.
Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.
Welcome to Very Bad Wizards. I'm Tamler Summers from the University of Houston. Dave, today we have the Weird Studies guys on to talk about The Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe in the main segment. And, you know, this got me thinking, is this podcast ultimately some kind of death cult?
Wait, why? do we tend to focus on morbid content nowadays?
Well, okay, so I had a rationale for this as I was, okay. For one thing, I think most people start a podcast, they don't think they're starting a death cult, right? And most people who start death cults probably don't think they're it just kind of trend. It just goes in
like
that
slippery slope, and before you know it, you're buying Nikes and cutting your balls off.
I guess, yeah. Yeah. In the Borges story I read, it was describing another like multi-volume text where the only word that wasn't mentioned was time, and that's how you knew that it was about time, right? Like, what's the one book that we keep saying we're gonna do, but we never do?
Yeah, but we're denying the denial of death, so we're embracing.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Yeah, okay. We're a life cult.
Yeah, I do agree that eventually we will die, and we probably will still be doing this fucking podcast.
Exactly. We think death is the escape, but it just won't be.
It'll just be really awkward if we die on the like while we're recording.
Yeah.
We should probably decide, would we post that one?
I mean, so are you thinking both of us die or just one of us?
No, I'm thinking one of us dies and the other one's like, oh, fuck, man. Now I have this, like, the raw audio, you know? Like, should I let everybody know? It's like one more ad, you know? Maybe BetterHelp is giving us some money.
Right. We could just get one last little Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would do it, you know, to honor you and your memory.
Thank you. You know, maybe. What if my last words are like, it's not that bad, guys?
Again, we're a death cult.
Well, okay, let's move on to le petit mort, as they say.
Yes, the amuse-bouche in more ways than one. Yeah, so that's the second segment. In the first segment, maybe we're going back to our roots, or I don't even know if this is our roots. I don't know what this is.
Well, we've never been presented with this such clear. I mean, I think it's definitely, though, the spirit of our roots.
So this is Aella.
Aella.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aella, who is, what is she exactly?
Aella is a very intelligent woman who has developed a strong internet following because she, I think, posts very interesting and provocative content, but she is a sex worker. She's on OnlyFans. I think she used to do camming, and very open about her sexuality. She actually was raised a super, super strict Christian and left them. She's also like, I guess what we would call now rationalist.
Mm-hmm. She's like the Slate Star Codex of sex.
Exactly, of like sex workers.
Yeah. You know,
she is the beacon for thirsty rationalists.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Like and I know that she's out there, but I've never dived in before you suggested this. But she seems like the sex symbol for our times. Data-driven, rationalist, kind of process-oriented, on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like she's not
by her own admission.
By her own admission. She's not self-obsessed, but she is engaged in a kind of constant self-examination, from what I can tell, in a way that reminds me of our age and especially millennials.
Yeah, right. And she does, it's not like she's not just posting sex stuff. Like she posts very interesting polls. She has like very, like very provocative takes on all sorts of things. But she's definitely very open about talking about her own experiences.
The thing that I think is so perfect for our times, at least according to my obsessions, is how quantified and graph-driven everything is. And charts. There's a lot of charts and graphs and data like that accompany her openness and transparency about who she is and what she does.
Right. It's like she thinks in like spreadsheet.
So what we're going to talk about, which I'm so glad you suggested, is I guess she had a birthday orgy, but it was more like a birthday gangbang. I guess we could talk about whether to, how to classify it.
Well, she titled it "My Birthday Gangbang," so I'm going to leave her to the categorization. Yeah, I'll trust her.
She has the lived experience of
exactly.
it. It's this is a very funny account. Like I don't think either of us subscribe to her Substack, so.
No, but by the end of this post, like, didn't you want to?
Absolutely. I was so like, if it hadn't been like I was too close to recording, I think I might have. And also, just to get because it ends on like she picked a good place to end it for the free preview.
Cliffhanger.
But there's a lot here in just the free preview, and we'd probably have to make it a main segment. So it's probably for the best.
That's very good. So she had a birthday gangbang that she organized as like a full-on event, and this blog post is the story of how that went, like from beginning to end. Basically, her boyfriend and some friends put together this event, and it turns out to be like quite complicated logistically to do this.
Yeah.
So
like already, like I'm out.
I'm out too. This is not the kind of impulsive, irresponsible sex that I like.
No.
Okay, so she, I'll just briefly do like the flowcharty account. So she put out a call for applications to be part of this gangbang. She had like some sort of automated filter, and she reported that 1,600 people responded to the survey. 776 of those passed the automatic filter. Then she had a manual filter where people read it. 448 of those passed that. They contacted 251. They interviewed 83 strangers and had 25 friends. They invited 87 people. They asked them to get tickets, which were free, but they could donate. Of those 87 people, 56 got a ticket, 13 canceled. 43. Now we're at the point where like if you're really going to do this, you got to commit. They had to go get an STI panel of like, one thing I learned from this is there are STIs that I had no idea existed. Yeah. And I'm very glad that I'm not in that world right now. But at the end, there's 42 guys in this house or whatever, wherever they were, all in bathrobes, all like nothing but bathrobes.
Like custom bathrobes.
Custom bathrobes.
I went to the Aella B-Day gangbang, and all I got was this bathrobe, and also to fuck a porn star.
Now, here's where I have a little bit of qualms. She does have an OnlyFans.
Yeah, but a porn star.
Is that really a porn star?
Yeah.
Aella,
no.
Are you really
an OnlyFans star, I'm willing to say. Anyway.
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting situation. So one thing I found really interesting about this post is that at least in the free version, she doesn't say anything about the attractiveness of the men. right? Like they had
No,
interviews.
but she's about to get into at least their penises once it ends.
Yeah, that's the cliffhanger. The
Wait,
dick
but
hanger.
before we get to that, can we just note that she leads this post, it's her Substack, with a quote from Nelson Mandela.
It's
I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Nelson Mandela. And I just like the opening. So that leads perfectly into, from the outside, it might seem like I am fearless in my sexual adventures, like I'm a confident slut running wildly from penis to penis. This isn't true at all. All the best risks I've taken in my life, all the sexual choices I have made that have revoked society's blessing on me, I've done despite experiencing sheer terror. And I don't even know if this fits. Like, this doesn't fit with the other preconceptions. Like, to just lead off with the Nelson Mandela quote about this, very kind of bureaucratically complicated orgy is funny.
Yeah, it is quite hilarious. And some people might get in trouble for that. I don't think she will. Maybe if she had started with like the arc of your dick bends toward my pussy.
Is there like a breakdown of the demographics of?
No, there's of the men.
Yeah.
No, there's not like, again, unless it's paid content, we really should have written this off on our taxes and just bit the bullet. Like we might have to follow up, but unless it's in the
Patreon.
paid content, there's no, there's not. Yeah, we should do that. That's
should.
perfect for like a quick episode. Yeah. You got it. Like, this is well written and interesting. And she is like very open in a way that, like, you're right. There is this line of like, is she self-obsessed? Like, I don't get the annoying vibes.
No.
Objectively, this is all about her, but she doesn't exude that energy of like me just being annoying.
No, it's not like the kind of narcissism. It is that kind of, like, again, I associate it with millennials, that I'm just constantly thinking about like what it is I'm doing and does it make sense and is it rational, and I need to like figure it out, and I need to get it, in numbers so that I have some metric that I can judge. Like,
well, I don't know that I don't know that millennials are into metrics generally, but they're definitely into, let me share what I'm thinking with the world and get some feedback on this, like, for sure. Like in a way that I am not personally, but I also think that like we are not.
No, we're just not, like, even for our generation.
All right. So now there is a real logistical problem here where you have 42 guys that you invited to a gangbang and they have to be hard, right? Like, and you have to come up with some rules about how this is going to go.
So they have fluffers. Should we explain what a fluffer is?
Yes.
A fluffer is somebody that, like, their job is to keep the men hard, right?
Yeah. For like in the porn industry, right?
Yeah.
Like in between takes.
There's a lot
before
of
the take or whatever.
Yeah. So that when it's time to shoot, they'll be ready. Yeah. And they're usually really attractive women. She said she had like 2 women that just were there to look hot, and then like 8 women, I think, who were actual fluffers and who would do like blowjobs or hand jobs or whatever they needed to do to keep the guy hard. So what I love is they held an opening circle to kind of initiate the event. And the opening circle, she says, where we went over the rules, behavioral norms, and expectations. One of the organizers made everyone solemnly swear to do their best to come only in the birthday girl as opposed to in any of the fluffers. So you're not allowed... You're not allowed to, or at least you're not supposed to. It's a norm.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Come in the fluffer. You have to come in. She then
we're not here. It's not their birthday.
It's not their birthday. Right. She said that we had way more fluffer interest than anticipated. By the
It's one
end,
of my favorite sentences,
Yes.
by the way.
We
Way
had-
more fluffer interest. Where is that?
it's true. That's a great. That could be like the line that opens a short story.
Yeah. By the end, we were turning away women trying to get in, which was an absurd position to be in. I think more women than you might think actually do want to participate in gangbang sluttery. They might just not admit it publicly or feel safe enough at most events to inhabit their full sexual expression. which is I find intriguing actually. I kind of want to know how common it is.
Do our listeners, to whatever percentage of female listeners, are you secretly harboring a desire to be a fluffer?
Yeah, and I guess guys maybe too, but it's sort of different.
Are there fluffers? Are there male fluffers for women? No, right?
No, I don't think so. But there are. I've heard that there are plenty of male porn stars who prefer male fluffers.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's a big tent.
So she writes right after this flow chart that outlines everything. She says, of the 42 who attended, 37 actually penetrated me, thus tanking the average Aella number of the planet. Some of the guys were experienced orgy kinksters where they made comments comparing this gangbang to others they'd attended. Others were totally new to any kind of sex party. Some hadn't had sex in years, and one was a virgin. This event was not kind towards men's penises. Lots of men had trouble getting hard, which is deeply understandable because practically for them, the experience was a bit like being a breeder in a cow pen. And then she says, okay, so the way that it would go was there would be just a line of guys trying to get hard. And once a guy was sufficiently hard, he'd come bang me, summoned by organizers yelling, anybody got a hard cock, line yourselves up by hardness. They had to jack themselves off furiously, and then they got 3 minutes to attempt to come while banging me. That would be like that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
In front of a bunch of guys who are like jacking themselves off or to use the euphemism.
Patreon.
There's no fucking way. Like, I really think if they had odds for me in this position, like 3 minutes,
you would have failed here.
I would have failed at any, probably at every level, but like, like here, the odds of me doing it are like, plus 2,500. I don't see it.
Right. She's also surrounded by other men who are holding her down.
Oh, yeah. Right. No, it's over. Forget it.
So
it's just a line of guys, and they just had to get a hard enough cock. And they had to go.
It's like guys in army movies parachuting from the plane.
Like in Toy Story. But then also line yourself up by hardness. Like, I'd love to know. I wish they had a graph for to what extent was that objectively the lineup of actual hardness.
I remember seeing in some sort of medical discussion of erection strength over the life of a man, showing an illustration of the angles of erection as you age, and how when you're young it's pointing up, and by the time you're old, it's like a dowsing rod, it's just looking for water in the ground.
That's so sad. Fuck getting old. It's just a daily. That's such a perfect metaphor for getting old.
It's just pointing down. It's like downtrodden. It's sad.
Oh God! Enough.
Your dick is saying, "Can you tell them I was sad?"
Yeah. This is why the Midsommar ritual of just you're 72 and you jump off a cliff, and hopefully you die in the fall, but if not, somebody's just gonna bash your head in. That's how it should be. For
a brief moment in the air, your dick will be pointing up.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You'll smile.
Yeah. It's the way to go out.
Talk about your data collection.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So she's collecting data on every aspect that she can, I think. So she had, like you said, 8 fluffers. And now the guys could be, because they're only getting 3 minutes with Aella, they get 3 minutes presumably inside her.
Yeah.
And they can spend as much time with the fluffers as they want before or after. And so she asked all of the men which fluffers they engaged with and what activities they engaged in. So she has a little chart that has 4 categories of sexual play: hand job, blow job, vaginal, and I came with her, which I guess is mutual masturbation or something. I don't know.
And
maybe it's just
according to Hoyle, in terms of the rules of the
Right.
unless it was after.
Yeah, or it might just be a separate thing. Did you or did you not? Like,
Yeah.
I guess.
I just mean that you're not supposed to come in the fluffer.
You're not. These were people who broke the norm.
Yeah.
And so you just see, looking at this, she also didn't, I think she says that the fluffers were attractive women, but from this chart, you can see that like there's one fluffer who got the most action. I don't know if she was like just the busiest or the most attractive or what, but she was, as Aella says, fluffer B fluffed hard.
Yeah, fluffer B. And like in every category.
In every category, yeah.
She definitely got the most people to break the no coming in fluffer rules, too.
I feel like she was using a lot of her resources at once, probably.
Fluffer F, too, had, it was a respectable showing.
Yeah, right.
And fluffer A just blew everybody. And so, like...
She's like the girlfriend in Clerks.
Yeah.
How many dicks did you suck on the way to the car? So one of the things that I find very funny is that when you look at Fluffer B's numbers and then you look at Fluffer C, there's like a huge difference. There's like 4 or 5 guys who engage with Fluffer C, whereas there's like 30 plus guys engaging with Fluffer B. And so they must have seen the results. These are the men reporting. And so there's a parenthetical here. Fluffer C reports she definitely gave more blowjobs than, for instance, Fluffer D, and thinks people didn't remember them as much because Fluffer D was having vaginal sex, but Fluffer C wasn't.
God.
It's like, well, that girl was fucking everybody. I just got dinged for not for just sucking dick.
Oh, God. Fluffer C is going to get radicalized,
I think it's also important to say, she reiterates this a few times, that like everybody was fully consensual and seemed to be having a good time and nobody felt weird about it, or at least not at the time.
Well, this is something that's kind of interesting to like, I'm a let 1,000 flowers bloom kind of guy. But this is just not my flower at all.
Yeah, right.
But it does seem like maybe this could be a good supportive community in some ways, you know. And then even just having a fluffer C who feels a little bit insulted or disrespected by the numbers, it's like, well, in any kind of community, you're going to have somebody like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely. The only person who might have permanent damage is the guy who lost his virginity in a gangbang, but maybe he's proud of it.
I don't know. It's better than being a virgin, probably, for however much longer. Probably a good chunk of time longer.
Yeah, this is where you're really interested in. I'm really interested in knowing how old these people were. So, speaking of the virgin, she says, one of them was a virgin. We asked if we could celebrate his first time, and he said, yes, the wackier the better, I believe. So we had him go first. He literally said, Leroy Jenkins, as he entered, and popped confetti over him when he finished. And I signed a personalized gift for him. It's a World of Warcraft character who yells out Leroy Jenkins.
Oh, man.
It's the most virgin of virgin things you could do, I think.
Yeah, and it really, again, if you had to describe a sex scene for our age, that's it,
This is the equivalent. This is what instead of 16 candles, we get Leroy Jenkins while you come in, Aella.
Yeah.
He was also wearing a heart rate monitor and shared the data with me. So we have now a chart of the virgin's heart rate.
Unbelievable. Just
amazing.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
I also once a man had sex with me, he drew a tally mark on my leg with a Sharpie and then signed the guest book, which was a pretty white wedding guest book I got because it was hilarious. It turns out
There's a picture.
Yeah, there we got a nice picture of it. It turns out lube ruins Sharpies.
Good to know.
Good to know, yeah. So despite us starting out with a surplus of Sharpies, by the end of the night, we were scrounging. I like the image of all these dudes scrounging around the apartment for Sharpie. Yeah.
It's so funny.
Upon banging the birthday girl, men got a sticker. Blue for banging, gold if they came. It's like, when like the kid, your preschooler would come home and they would have like a smiley face or like a normal face or a sad
now I'm
face.
going to wonder if my daughter banged Aella.
So here's the thing. They could continue banging and coming in fluffers if they wanted after that.
And if the fluffers are down. Yeah, which I feel like is unfairly treating the guys who failed to get it up and penetrate Aella successfully.
But maybe like now they go to a fluffer and the pressure is off and there's not like this dun 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 dun
Right,
while you're doing it. Like maybe that would have been great. Like,
Yeah, that's true. I just do feel bad for the guys who just never got a chance. They don't even get the consolation prize. Like
they don't even get they got no sticker. Yeah. They meet each other at a
snorting
bar like,
Viagra.
hey, what sticker did you get?
Well,
so, okay.
Yeah.
I have to ask you a question. At one of the charts is how many orgasms did you have at this?
Oh, fuck, right?
And
I know what you're
so, like, as far as I can tell, this is self-reported data. So 12 people have just reported 0 orgasms, no fluffer, no Aella. 14 say 1, 7 say 2, 1 says 3, 2 says 4, 1 says 5, 2 says 6 orgasms.
I think there are unicorns like that. I think that such people exist. I am not such people. The whole vibe of this doesn't strike me as encouraging anybody to lie about anything.
Right.
Like if you follow her, you probably think that it's sacred to like accurately report data. So like I kind of believe it. Like I think that there are, I don't know how long. Does she say how long the whole event lasted?
No.
So
I don't know.
I don't know, but
there are
that's a lot of
unicorns,
condoms.
but are there 2 unicorns?
There are 2.
But I mean, like, that's like impressive recovery. Like,
It's very impressive. Like that. So interestingly, like the way that this post concludes, right before you have to get to the pay, is she's just assessing like how her experience was, and she says like, like as she's happy that she did it, but it wasn't like the most pleasurable of sexual experiences, because she was just so focused on managing everybody's expectations about the experience, which I get. Like that
Totally.
seems like a lot of pressure on her.
Being the host is not a relaxing thing. It seems like she had to be the host for all of this.
And like apparently she has some kinks about like, biting and stuff that
she had to stop herself from biting.
Stop herself from biting.
That sucks. Who among us, like,
That's why the guys were holding her down.
that's probably why,
and she's like, she has a striking amount of empathy for these guys. She's already talked about like how she doesn't blame them for like not getting hard. And she says, I ended up subtly attempting to manage people's experiences. I really felt for the men putting themselves in such a vulnerable position. If I wanted to freak out or do something weird, I suppressed it because I knew they didn't know me or how to interpret my actions. They hadn't been fully briefed really, and I didn't want to worry them.
But yeah,
like
I like this part where she says that, it's just like, I'm glad I did it, but I do these things to like relax and feel relief. And so she's going to have a more normal orgy next year.
Again, as we all do.
I think we all have to try one of these, and then
I admire, like, honestly, I admire the people. Like, I can see the appeal. It's funny because I did have, like, when I first heard about this, I did have like this gut reaction that's sort of like maybe just a result of like a hard Christian upbringing, that like this is somehow bad. And maybe it is. Like, maybe I just don't know why it is. But the way that she wrote about it and described it, like, I buy that people are like, hey, you only live once. Like, if this is something that I'm kind of curious about and I get the chance to do it, like, I'm going to do it. Like, as she says at some point, she's like, there's nothing inherently bad about having a penis in my vagina. And there's nothing inherently bad about lining them up. I'm convinced rationally that good for them.
Yeah, I mean, my issues with it aren't that. It's more like the parts of that sound like you're going through like passport control, like when you get back, like just the bureaucracy, the signing, the being in meetings, the lining up.
You're like down for gangbangs, but not the red tape.
Okay, we should read the end and then wrap up and get to the weird studies, guys. But and it's not the end of the post; it's just the end for us. Yeah. First, she says that she thinks it's likely that some of the fluffers will get their own birthday gangbangs in the future, like maybe
or at least Fluffer B.
Fluffer B. Reviewer like 2 on the other. Then she says, on a personal level, I had 2 primary things of note: penises. I've never had such a controlled experiment of penis experiences. Usually I'm experiencing penises in different positions while in different moods, but this was just one penis after the other, and the differences were really apparent. I found I completely changed my mind about a specific penis trait, and this will update the way I talk about penises moving forward.
Of course it will.
I moved through 3 distinct stages while lying on the bed for hours: nervousness, a god complex, and then cope. But first, penises.
And then?
This is like
for paid subscribers.
The season 2 finale of Twin Peaks, where like Cooper's looking himself in the mirror and just like saying, "How's Annie?" and it ends, and you don't get another one for 25 years. It's just the ultimate cliffhanger. Like what like do I have the penis trait? That was, I like that it'll update. She's going to update her prior penises.
Exactly. That's what this is. She's appealing to the rationalists reading this have like a serious chub at the end, if not a full on, like pointing north, pointing up.
They go to the front of the line.
Front of the line. But what a brilliant, it's like Who Shot JR for an even older reference.
Given that, like, it's probably mostly guys that are reading this, and they're like, or maybe I have a good.
As she says, maybe like there are a lot of women who are just like reading this and being like, wow, fuck yeah,
yeah.
Like, but yeah, it ends. This post is for paid subscribers. So what a just brilliant way to end her post. What guy reading this isn't going to seriously consider knowing whether their dick please,
like,
I bet you she got like 3,000 new subscribers at least.
Yeah, including one of us for our Patreon discussion of part 2.
Exactly. Let's use the Very Bad Wizards email.
Yeah, that was something like that. We're cowards. I will say that, I have to say this just because of my pet projects, but I don't know if this is such a well-controlled experiment of penis experiences, because you got to take into account order effects, sample size.
You're already coping for what you're preparing.
N42, or whatever. Like, I don't know.
What inferential statistics did she use?
All right. We'll be back. We're actually going to have a very respectable conversation.
Such a tone shift.
In the second segment. We'll be right back to talk with J.F. Martel and Phil Ford from the great Weird Studies podcast about Edgar Allan Poe's The Masque of the Red Death. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Wouldn't it be nice if you had an extra hour in your day? Like, don't you spend a lot of your life wishing you had more time? God knows I do. And then there's also the question, okay, if you do have more time for what? What would you do with it? Would you just be on your phone? Would you just be doom scrolling on Twitter? Here's the thing. The best way to squeeze that special thing that you'd like to do into your schedule is to know what's important to you. And even more than that, to figure out a way to motivate yourself to do it in the moment. And therapy can help you do both of those things. Therapy can help you find out what matters so you can do more of it. I know so many people who have benefited so much from therapy. Therapy has been one of the things that have helped turn their life around. So, if you are thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So, learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/VBW to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/VBW. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Welcome back to Very Bad Wizards. This is the time where we like to take a moment to thank all of our listeners for getting in touch with us, reaching out, and all the different ways that you do. We love the community that has formed around Very Bad Wizards. If you would like to email us at verybadwizards@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at Peas or at Tamler or at Very Bad Wizards. You can follow us on Instagram. You can join the Reddit community, Very Bad Wizards on Reddit. You can like us on Facebook. You can give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That would be awesome. That will help other people find the podcast who may not know about it and who might like us. We always appreciate word of mouth as well. We know a lot of new listeners come that way. Oh, also, follow me on Letterboxd. I've been posting reviews, or at least ratings, but mostly reviews every time I see a movie, just little short impressions of the movie. It's like healthy social media. It's not like good for the soul, but it's not bad for the soul. Maybe it is a little good for the soul. If you would like to support us in more tangible ways, you can give us a one-time or recurring donation on PayPal. You can buy some swag on our support page on Reddit, or you can join our Patreon, and we have a bunch of different tiers with a bunch of different kinds of bonus content, including our series, The Ambulators, a detailed breakdown of every episode of Deadwood. And we are right now in season 3. We've had to take a little pause in that because of traveling that isn't very well coordinated with me and David, but we will get back to that very soon. And of course, we have the Ask Us Anythings, and we just last episode narrowed down the finalists for the listener selected episode. So now in a couple days, we'll put up the vote for the 6 finalists, and our $5 and up listeners will get to vote and select the topic for that episode. Some good options there. Of course, at the $10 and up tier, you get to ask us a question if you so choose every month, and we will answer it in video form for you and audio form for all of our bonus tier listeners. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It is an honor to do this podcast and to be supported by such a great group of listeners. Thank you. All right, we're so happy to welcome J.F. Martel and Phil Ford from the Weird Studies podcast, and we are going to talk about Edgar Allan Poe's The Masque of the Red Death. The Red Death, right?
Yes. Not just any Red Death. The Red Death.
The Red Death.
Yeah, I've really been wanting to have you on for a while. I listened to your podcast, Weird Studies, and I even am honored to have been on it for an episode on, what was it? Fire Walk with Me, right?
Yeah.
I thought maybe we could get started by maybe you guys telling our audience, some of whom may not be familiar with your podcast or even the genre that you deal with, weird fiction, weird things in general, the weird. So what exactly is that? How could you define that for people who might not be even aware that this genre exists?
I believe Tamler's asking, what are the necessary and sufficient conditions?
Exactly.
He was very burning desire to know.
And then I have 3 counterexamples. Just devastating.
Yeah, there'll be no such thing as weird by the end. So I guess, is it easier to start with weird fiction or with the weird in general, Phil? What do you think?
Well, all I'll say about the weird is just how I defined it for the purposes of some content for the website. I wrote that the weird is whatever lies on the far side of the line between what we can easily accept from our world and what we cannot. And some things are just kind of radically ill-situated within whatever cognitive or emotional frameworks we use to make sense of the world. The contents of that collection of items is obviously going to change as over time. But there does seem always to be in existence some kind of remainder, some folder in the great universal filing cabinet marked miscellaneous/other. And some things in this world seem to belong to that category on point of principle. It seems almost to transcend the vagaries of what people find weird and what they don't at any given time. I suppose I feel like weird fiction is always kind of trying to grope towards that feeling of the generally and genuinely incommensurable. It to me is fiction that gives you a little shock, and it can be a very little shock. It can be very subtle, but it gives you that little shock of alterity, of something just radically other from your own, not only your experience, but like categories of thought, the complexion of your emotional life, just something that stands outside and wants to come in.
Yeah, I think a big part of what we're doing on our show is geared towards challenging, questioning, or finding the kind of edges of the modern episteme, the modern paradigm we operate in. And that's not an anti-modern position. In fact, I think it's the eminently modern position. The modern position should be that we don't just know how things go. And so if you take that idea to its full kind of consequence, you face a world that you can never fully understand. And so it encourages you to keep looking for the edge, looking for the weird angle on things. So for example, we might discuss like a fairly innocuous movie on our show, but we always try to find that point in the narrative, if it's a movie or in a story or piece of music or whatever, where things get a little weird, where suddenly something that seemed fairly familiar and domesticated, so to speak, suddenly reveals a kind of like soupçon of weirdness, And weird fiction is just fiction that sets out to do that. So we tend to gravitate towards that type of fiction, but also towards other topics such as the occult, the paranormal. I mean, everything's fair game in our show. And we can explore all these different avenues, but we try to avoid doing it as kind of like partisans or believers of one or another take on any of these topics, right? So we try to maintain a kind of Jamesian, pragmatic approach.
Yeah. Late William James is, I think, in the same spirit as your show.
Or we're in his spirit.
Yeah. Well, backward causation.
Right. Retro causation, a weird idea.
Exactly.
What are the quintessential sort of authors for you of weird fiction?
Oh, it's a big list for me, but we're like, let's just limit ourselves to prose fiction. Who would you say are the key ones, Phil?
Well, there's the canonical, like the first name anybody's going to mention probably is H.P. Lovecraft, but I suppose my own attitude is a little bit more personal or perhaps self-indulgent. Just what are the writers who induce a certain feeling in me? For me, the feeling is always that there's something going on in the book that is straining against the limits of the page and wants to somehow infect reality. The kind of book that I shouldn't be reading when I can't sleep at 3 a.m. Mm-hmm. And I've often found that like some of Philip K. Dick's novels, like Ubik and The Three Stigmata, or Valis, right. I don't think people just say, oh, Philip K. Dick, he's a science fiction writer, but to me, he's a weird fiction writer. He fulfills at least my own personal criterion for being a weird fiction writer.
For me, I think that like the key ones, again, it's really personal, but if we were to like draw out a canon, right, we could talk about H.P. Lovecraft, Arthur Machen, Algernon Blackwood,
Lord Dunsany.
Lord Dunsany. There's a sort that sometimes it's referred to as pre-Tolkien, fantasy.
Right.
A lot of that stuff was weird. A lot of the pulp fiction of the 30s and 40s now is just kind of grouped under this rubric of weird fiction. There's a mixture of genres in that type of fiction. You might have science fiction elements with fantasy elements and that sort of thing. It's a big tent. The ones that I keep going back to, I just reread Robert Chambers' book, The King in Yellow, which is one of my favorite pieces of weird fiction. Arthur Machen, I just mentioned. Lovecraft, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, you gave us Color Out of Space as an idea because I consulted you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's some late Lovecraft. The late Lovecraft is really, really good stuff, I find. And then finally, a contemporary writer that I really, really appreciate is Thomas Ligotti. And I also want to give honorable mention to Flannery O'Connor, who's not usually included, but I think is an excellent writer of weird fiction.
We may be doing an episode on her soon. We do a listener selected episode, and that was a finalist of the topics.
I recommend it. Yeah,
people have been trying to get us to do one of her stories for a long time.
Or her essays. Her essays are really good too.
Really? So I just listened to, I'm doing this course on Borges and philosophy, and I'm doing Talon, Ukbar, Orbis Tertius in Thursday's class. And so I listened both to our episode on it and then to your episode on it. And I think that's an interesting example. I wouldn't think that you would put Borges in the canon of weird fiction, even though
I would.
I would. Absolutely would. Yeah.
Okay. No, and I think deservedly so, and especially that story because that's a story that's straining against the page, like more than any story I can really think of.
Yeah.
And
I remember that episode that we did as being one of the most sidebar intensive of all of our episodes. Had a really hard time staying on topic.
Yeah, we were like, okay, anyway, back to Talon. Speaking of that, I guess we should get into this story by Edgar Allan Poe, which is quite a story. I thought we'd just go around and give just our opening impressions about the central themes or something about it. Was it you, JF, that suggested this for a topic?
I included it in a short list of possible Poe stories. It's one of my favorite Poe stories, not for the message, but for the decadence of it, the color and the aesthetics of it. I find it really haunting. So that's why I suggested it. Yeah, it drips for sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what are I don't know. I don't know why I'm being like, what's that show? The something group.
Oh, the McLaughlin Group?
The McLaughlin Group. Like,
wow.
Oh my God. There you go. That show from 1993. Next issue. What did you think of the Poe story? Disagree.
Opening salvos about the Masque of the Red Death.
Right.
Well, I mean, apropos what JF just said, something that I love in stories, I like things that are both a little motionless and a little eerie or a little weird. I get impatient with just plot, the mechanics, the hydraulics of plot, feeling that I'm being frog marched through more or less obligatory series of plot points towards some conclusion. And we talked about this a bunch. We talked about this actually talking about Miyazaki's film Spirited Away. And what I love is mood. I like the musical aspects of fiction, or perhaps I sometimes think of it as almost spatial. Like some stories feel like they unfold a space for you to inhabit. Not a very directional space, not a corridor, not a place marked with arrows where you have to go down certain hallways, but just a place where you can hang out, a place that is full of mood. Before, when I was preparing for this, I was like, maybe I'll watch that Roger Corman film, 1964 film, Masque of the Red Death. And I started watching it and just turned it off immediately because I'm like, well, to take this story and turn it into a movie, they had to make a villain. So, Vincent Price, who's awesome, but we had to turn Prince Prospero into a cruel tyrant. And we had to turn the story of Masque of the Red Death into a kind of, story of retribution, of divine justice. And all of that stuff is what I don't want. What I want is what the short story gives us, which is this incredible creepy mood, like a dream, like when you wake up from a dream and you try to tell somebody what it was, but it's almost like it falls apart in your hands. You can't say what it was because what happened wasn't what was important. It was like the quality of light or the way that set of bagpipes looked on that table or whatever it was you were dreaming about. And this story is so full of that. That's what I love about it. It doesn't have much of a plot. It's just a dream.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love that too. That space, the similarity between Miyazaki and the other works of fiction that you're talking about, that is patient. And you're right. You need that to create a mood. You need a bit of stillness to impart an emotion like eeriness that doesn't come from a direct description. It's like the offbeat in music. Like it's that space in between the notes to let us feel. And it's something that's sort of alluded to in the text itself, which is when the clocks strike and everybody has the stillness, then they can actually, and when it's striking 12, that gives them an extra long time to notice things. And that's when they notice the Red Death. And yeah, I love that.
Brilliant. This is one of the reasons I think why, if you look at the history of weird fiction, it tends to favor the short story over the novel. The top writers in the field tend to write shorter fiction, novellas or short stories. Thomas Ligotti has spoken about this and just said that you just can't sustain mood for the entirety of a novel. Some can, but of course you'll have to start having color shifts and mood shifts along the way and maybe play with a series of moods, but to really capture, and speaking of Poe specifically, I mean, he wrote essays about what a short story should do. And it's all about capturing one specific emotion, right? And, but his understanding of the word emotion, or it's maybe affect would be a better term that we could use for it, or mood and ambiance, a kind of like a whole situation in which some change is happening, some momentous change. But it's not about tracking the consequences of a change, but trying to get to that moment where things turn or something is happening, something beyond any particular event, something that's kind of just like implicit in the whole situation. And I find that this story does it like masterfully. And what I love about this story specifically, Masque of the Red Death, so it's basically the plot couldn't be simpler. There's a fictional, but we don't know where we are. I've always imagined that this is a sequel to The Tempest, because we have a duke called Prospero, who is, I always, this is Prospero's, like, this is the final part of his vengeance. But then he dies, so it doesn't really work as a theory. But you have this duke who his land is basically overcome by this horrible plague, like a horrible illness that kills you in a half hour, of profuse bleeding through every pore of your body. And so what he does is he castellates himself and like 1,000 of his courtiers in this abbey and this palace that of his own design, this kind of crazy mad place, and then throws this masquerade ball in there. And the story is all about how the Red Death, the plague, infiltrates the palace, and then the Red Death ends up coming in. And what I wanted to mention is that one of the centerpieces of the story is this clock on the wall, the last of the 7 rooms in which the ball is taking place. And the clock is constantly referred to, and it's punctuating the whole story. And the clock, of course, is counting down until the Red Death comes in. But the whole story is built like a clock. He spends, I think, 80% of the story is just him putting the pieces in place. This room's there, and then that room, and that room has this color, and then the lights are here, and it's just setting up this one moment where this one masquerade participant comes in, no one who knows who he is, and he ends up being, of course, the Red Death. And the whole thing is built like clockwork. The story is kind of like almost like a diorama, Right. And I love that about it. So I like that when you emphasize stillness, Phil, and also David, this is a very still story. Nothing moves. Things are turning because it's a ball. People are waltzing, but nothing's moving until the very, very end. Yeah.
Like a clock, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I was with Phil also in the dream. Like, I got a very dream feel from this story. Not that it's literally a dream, but it's a dream narrative. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me, as things typically do, of like a kind of Lynchian dream, like Lost Highway or Mulholland Drive, where there can be some kind of bright fantasy elements of it, but the cracks are already appearing. and they're getting worse, and it's like the dream can't fully sustain itself, and the reality, the things on the outside, literally in this case, that you're trying to keep out, they can't be contained, and then like the cracks are showing. This story is it's like if the whole Mulholland Drive was in Club Silencio, where
Right.
its
Yeah,
camera is
yeah.
shaking and like it's just about to cave in. Like the dream is about to cave in, and reality is just beating down the hatchets, and then at the end you die.
It's already inside.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you can imagine that
That's right.
because they go into this castle and they actually like weld the portcullis shut so nobody can leave.
Right.
But the sense you get is that the plague is already in there. It's already in with them.
Yeah, it can't, like, you can put the stained glass windows and the curtains and all but it's not.
Yeah.
It can't, it's going to find its way inside.
Right.
I mean, from that point of view, you could easily read this as an allegory for, the consciousness of an individual person, because it works very much the way repression works, where you see the battlements raised against the thing to be kept out. You see these extraordinary preparations on a vast scale, 1,000 courtiers, and they set up a foundry specifically to fuse all the metal gates shut and inhabit this abbey for a year or something, for a long time, and create an entirely artificial world. Like, there's no, at least the way it's described, there's no natural light in this suite of 7 apartments.
Yeah.
And this is a most fantastically weird touch. The windows are all windows that give onto a closed corridor.
Right.
So it's like nothing from the outside. Everything is entirely self-enclosed, a self-enclosed little made world where the lights are coming through these colored stained glass windows from these braziers, but there's no natural light. And, you could sort of think of this as like an allegory for psychosis. Somebody's trying to keep the awareness of something. And of course, it's futile. Although I'm not going to say that that's like primarily the way I would think of it. I suppose I'm slightly resistant to thinking in too allegorical a way. What I was thinking, actually, partly because I'm teaching the history of Western music at Indiana University Jacobs School of Music this semester, the 1800 to the present. And one of the pieces we did recently was Richard Strauss's opera Salome, which is based on Oscar Wilde's Salome. And that's a decadent opera. That is a decadent fiction. And I was thinking particularly about the ending. And there's this kind of Thelma and Louise vibe you sometimes get in decadent fictions, the glorious moment where you drive that car right off the cliff. It's almost sort of like these fictions exist as demolition derbies, where the point is to have the smash up at the end. The point of creating this hermetically sealed environment that keeps the world, the natural world, out and permits the elaboration of this febrile, overcooked, mannered, decadent world that exists solely to the reason you create that bubble is to prick it at the end. There's this gesture in the narrative of the unrealizable, unsustainable beauty of the purely artificial. It must crumble before the daylight. In Salome, it's the nocturnal world that ultimately has to yield to the solar world. Salome has to die beneath the soldiers' shields at the end. And it's not a tragedy. That's like the glorious consummation of the decadence of the story.
Yeah, although there's something about him going after the Red Death with a dagger, kind of going through all the rooms. Okay, I'm gonna get this guy. Like, it says he was kind of ashamed of his cowardice. Like, there's something. It doesn't seem like a triumphant ending for Prospero.
No, not for him.
Yeah, but I guess you're talking about it in totality, and Prospero is just a small part of the ultimate triumph of the decadence.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that triumphs is not any figure in the story. It's the triumph of the destruction. It's the triumph of dissolution and death and decay.
Yeah.
This is written to me like such a reverse fairy tale. There's a prince and a castle, and his name is Prospero, right? And he has this act of bravery at the end. He's going to save all of the people and his friends, but it's just all like twisted, and death and decay takes over everything.
Yeah, and it's so ironic from the start, but the Prince Prospero was happy and dauntless and sagacious. Those are the three things he precisely isn't. He's not happy. He's not dauntless because he's scared shitless of the plague, and he's not sagacious because he's screwing over his entire kingdom to save 1,000 select elite few.
Deliberately ignore what's happening outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you both about, because you know this fiction more than I do. But I was interested in the narrator. He's quasi-omniscient, but also quasi-journalistic, like he's there, first person, like, I told you about this, now I'm going to tell you about this. He's also, like you said, ironic. He's kind of sarcastic in how he describes certain things. If we're meant to think that he was there, that doesn't work because everybody died. And so it's this narrator that it's a little hard to place, what his connection to the story is. And it reminded me of a short story that I now teach every year, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, has a similar kind of narrator that is talking to you very conversationally, talking to you like they're there, like they're witnessing. We're just getting their report of what's happening. Sometimes the tenses can switch, but it's never exactly clear what this narrator is.
Right.
Like,
that's classic Poe.
That's just classic Poe.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I mean,
because the ones I know are more first-person narrative. Like,
that's true.
General first-person narrative.
He's got a few. He's got a lot of first-person. In this case, there is a first-person voice there. Like you said, he does speak in his own voice, but he never inserts himself into the plot at all.
There's one conspicuous moment of dissonance for me. I particularly noticed it. Was the mention of Hernani, which is on the second page. There were much glare and glitter and piquancy and phantasm, much of what has been since seen in Hernani. That's a play, I think, by Victor Hugo, which I only know because Giuseppe Verdi turned it into an opera. And that's a real-world fiction, a real-world cultural reference that positions the narrator in, our world, a world that contains Victor Hugo.
And yet,
and yet
none of this has happened. So this is what I was trying to get at, is that I think that this is a deeply unreliable narrator and possibly a psychotic narrator, or at least seriously deluded.
Interesting. Like the madness has infected the narrator too, as he's describing it.
Or what we're given is this is just the monologue of an insane. I shouldn't use that word, but of a psychotic person. Phil and I just did a show on expressionism, which sounds very abstract, but ended up being I think it's a really great show. And we talked about the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, famous 1920 German expressionist film. It's bookended. It's got a framing story, and it's essentially at the beginning you see there's this guy who starts telling the story, then we get the story, and then we come back to his world at the end, and we realize only at the end we learn that he's an inmate in an asylum. And so everything we've been told might have been just inner experience, but then again, there's so many ambiguities at that point that maybe what we're seeing is just that he ended up in this place because of what happened and it was all real. You just don't know. So there's a kind of like built-in insoluble ambiguity that I think I sense in this narrative as well. Yeah.
When do you place the story? I get the sense this is
15th?
like The Tempest, 16th century, something like that.
I would say 15th or 16th century. Yeah.
So then him referring to 19th century work in it is definitely placing us more in the kind of omniscient narrator.
Or it's a historian, right? This is a piece of historical text. This is,
That's right.
This episode of Very Bad Wizards is brought to you by Factor at factormeals.com. Look, my whole life I've been told that if I want to live a long, healthy life, that I have to go out of my way to do extra work. I got to make sure I exercise. I got to be very vigilant about what kind of food I buy and maybe cook for myself, get plenty of sleep. The Factor is one way in which I found a cheat code. Eating better, right? Providing your body with that good fuel is easier than ever with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. So every single one of Factor's fresh, never frozen meals is chef crafted, it's dietitian approved, and it's ready to go in just 2 minutes. They have over 35 different options of meals that you can choose from every week that get delivered to your door. These include Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. Plus, And this is, I think, my favorite part of Factor. There are more than 60 add-ons that you can get that help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. Basically, snacks, drinks that are also healthy, that you could just toss in your bag. And if you're like me and just sometimes forget to eat when you're at work, you can always have something that's ready to go. So you basically just have like a wide variety of things that are easy options for breakfast or midday bites, snacks, more. Again, it's no prep, there's no mess, they're ready to heat and eat, no prepping or cooking, no cleanup even if you don't want. You can eat right out of the containers. The plan itself is also flexible, so you can get as much or as little food, snacks as you need by choosing your meals every week, and you can pause or reschedule your deliveries at any time. So, if you need a solution like this, something that allows you to eat healthy and eat quickly in a way that fits the kind of lifestyle that you might have, like I do, Factor is, I think, the perfect solution. If this is something that might interest you, go over to factormeals.com/VBW50 and use code VBW50 to get 50% off. Again, that's code VBW50 at factormeals.com/VBW50 and you'll get 50% off. Our thanks to Factor for sponsoring this episode of Very Bad Wizards. What added a little bit to sort of consistent with what you're saying about the narrator perhaps experiencing madness or this being a story about madness, for some reason it was jarring to me when he all of a sudden switches to the present tense, which made me feel like, okay, oh, he's in there?
Yeah.
You know, like he's in there describing it. And then he goes right back to the past tense.
Because suddenly he's taking us, and suddenly we're in the present tense, and he's just describing what's happening in the clock. And it's interesting because it's when he's talking about time and the clock sounding we go into the present, and almost like he's taking us out of time into this eternal present where we're always in the presence of the Red Death or something.
That convention, if indeed it is a convention, is in service of something that I think is like absolutely a hallmark of weird fiction, at least to me, which is raising doubts, usually fairly subtly, about the reality claims of the world that's being narrated. What are the reality claims of the world within which this takes place? And because there are these fantastical elements to this story, it feels like, oh, it's fantasy. You know, I don't have to ask questions about like, well, how exactly do you bleed through your pores anyway? Is that even physically possible? I feel like I'm off the hook. I don't have to ask that question any more than I have to ask where Middle Earth is exactly.
Right.
But then that's just the subtle imposition of something from a realistic world, a piece of real 19th century literature, or a switch of temporal frame. It can be subtle enough that, I mean, it's not going to draw attention to itself, but it will undermine the sense that even as a fantasy world, this is a bounded and stable entity. Like we understand what reality claims it raises. These little details are things that subvert any possibility of there being a unitary kind of like reality frame around this.
Yeah. You know, one other example of how weird fiction can play with time in interesting ways. It's one of my favorite examples, and it's one of the most glaring examples of this, is in a book called The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. It's basically just a high fantasy fairy tale about a guy who goes into Elfland to steal the King of Elfland's daughter, brings her back and marries her. And it's just and at one point in like chapter 7, he's like, now some readers are going to be wondering, when did all this happen? And then he gives you a year. He's like, this happened in 1536 or something like that. It's like super specific, but you're obviously not in like they're in a land called that. And it actually increases the weirdness. It's kind of like the weird is not in the fact that we're in a totally fantastical place, or the fact that weird stuff is happening in like Maine, like a Stephen King novel, you know, but the weird is like things are you're always in between. You're always between the imagination and reality. And it's kind of Twilight Zone. You can never settle into some metaphysical frame that's comfortable, either imaginary or real, you know?
Yeah. That's a Borges specialty also.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
that is like, there's tons of real references, tons of outlandish things.
Yeah.
And you get dizzy from it precisely because of, this just mix of real elements with things that, well, we think can't be real. But, all of that just starts to get thrown up into question.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant when I was talking about, like, for me, weird fiction is stuff I shouldn't be reading at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep.
Yeah, right.
Because of exactly that vertigo, that feeling of like, just where are the limits? If the book is so insistently raising doubts about its status as a book, its status as a story, if it is so loosely contained within its own fictional frame, you have this sort of feeling of like, oh, this is kind of bleeding into like my world. Mm-hmm. It could make you feel a little paranoid when you can't sleep at 3 a.m.
I guess more specifically, it's hard to ignore some of the themes. I agree that I don't like it as a kind of obvious political allegory, but it's undeniable that having a wealthy prince just decide, I'm going to ignore all this death. It's too disgusting. It's too disturbing. I can't deal with it. I'm just going to get all my rich friends together for the most decadent kind of ball you could possibly imagine. I don't know. How does that element of the story interact? The kind of the political, not message, but the political insights.
I just want to say that I'm so thankful that we have all transcended the kind of monarchical systems in which such things would happen. Because today, something like this would not happen today.
No,
nor did it happen 3 years ago.
Right. It's just like Gavin Newsom is the lamest possible version of Prospero, with his little COVID parties that he would have.
I think it's important to discuss that part, obviously. I mean, especially having lived through, COVID.
But also just
that.
how it interacts with the other weird elements that we've been talking about so far, because it's just undeniable that it's got to be part of what's going on here. This idea of the privileged, wealthy people ignoring the disease, misery, and suffering that's outside, trying to not let it affect them or even just be in their presence. You know what I mean?
I'm struck by how little comment the narrative includes about that. I mean, there's an implicit, the Red Death raged outside, but there's no judgment on the courtiers for doing this.
The sarcasm might be, but that's
absolutely. Yeah. No, I think you're right about that, but I think it's just interesting that it's not put forward as kind of how we're supposed to think of this.
It scales up from the individual to the social level absolutely effortlessly, it being the story and the interpretation of it. Once you permit some degree of allegory in the way you're thinking about the story, which is almost inevitable because, I mean, it's a story that is so clearly about a return of the repressed, and as like Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer liked to point out, there's an intimate relationship between repression on the individual human psychological level and on the social level. And what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, if you're thinking about this as an expression of the futility and madness of a certain kind of repression that also is touching on a kind of social madness that is obviously very visible, very tangible, palpable in the world that we're actually in. I was reading this and I was thinking about something I read. I've read actually a number of places, the uber rich, mega billionaires who are trying to figure out how to basically do exactly what Prospero does in this story in the event of civilizational, ecological, etc. collapse, to have like a private army of people protecting you from all the people at the gates trying to get in and take your stuff. What was it? Douglas Rushkoff was.
Yeah, Rushkoff was. He wrote an article. He was invited to speak to a bunch of Silicon Valley dudes, like powerful people, and he thought he was going to be talking about, giving his usual thing on critiquing the media and media literacy at the time and that sort of thing. But they ended up they're like, okay, so what do we do when the event happens? Like, how do we survive? And Douglas Rushkoff is like, what? Why me? That's a real thing. And it's so funny how you could unironically adopt that attitude, It's just kind of weird.
One of the things about this story that strikes me as extra horrific is how little I thought about what's going on outside. The gates are welded shut, and there is absolutely zero discussion of what's happening outside the gates other than that we know the Red Death is taking over. I also thought that it was great to use the decadence of the rich as somehow symbolizing just the comfort that we all have in repressing thoughts of whatever we're trying to repress, but it's specifically death. I mean, the rich are the most comfortable in this story because they can, but we all are in a position where we can ignore large portions of the world that we don't want to think about.
Yeah, that's true.
And we are like princes shutting ourselves up in a castle and having revelry.
Yeah, and like you said, like we're also good at distracting ourselves from the parts of ourselves that we don't want to face.
Yeah.
Well, that's another leitmotif in this story, is generally that which is unassimilable to mere culture, to whatever your ideas, your notions, your education, your class-determined takes on things, all of the various civilizational structures, all the veils we have that we cast between ourselves and that kind of ultimate outside, that kind of hard, cold, unyielding outside, the non-negotiable. The sense of that as something that bleeds through, that as an outside that wants to come inside, I think that's a fairly widespread trope in weird fiction. This is a passage on the second last page-ish, depends on what edition you have, I suppose. This is a description of the figure of the Red Death, the figure of death when it first appears, and describes the figure in question as having out-Heroded Herod and gone beyond the bounds of even the prince's indefinite decorum. There are chords in the hearts of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion. Even with the utterly lost, to whom life and death are equally jest, there are matters of which no jest can be made. The whole company, indeed, seemed now deeply to feel that in the costume and bearing of the stranger neither wit nor propriety existed. And it's like, the idea is like, even if you're making life and death itself a joke,
Right.
there are some graveyards that you cannot whistle past.
Yeah.
And the figure of the Red Death is the figure not only of death and not only a figure of plague and pestilence, but a figure of that, some kind of ultimate contingency, some absolute contingency that nobody can laugh at.
If we take the chambers as some sort of allegory of further and further repression, what's horrifying to me, the last chamber, the deepest one, the one where you should be the most protected, is the one where death lies.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I wanted
It's
to say.
just
Yeah.
The fucking irony of you building this thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And
Like, what did you expect would happen? I mean, in a sense,
the worm is at the core.
Yeah,
the worm is at the core. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the reader is expected to see the end coming from the start. I don't think it's supposed to be a surprise. The whole thing is kind of this labyrinth, this kind of suite of rooms with different colors. I think it's like blue, green,
purple, green, orange, white, thence to the violet, and then finally black shot with red.
Yeah.
Last room.
So
That's the only one where the curtain doesn't match the room.
Yeah. And okay. So just so the listener understands, you've got 7 rooms, each with a different color, and the stained glass windows, which are the only source of light because they have these braziers outside the windows shining the light into each room. Each room is monochrome. It's one color. So you're in a blue room, and then you're in a green room, etc. Orange room, which I find particularly, that must be horrific in itself.
Yeah.
But then at the end of this, you have a black room, and that one, for reasons we're not privy to, doesn't have black windows. It has red windows, and the light coming in is red. So it's a totally black room, black carpet, black walls with this red light coming in. And that's where they put the clock, which sounds the hour loudly and it seems like the whole thing was set up, which is why when Prospero's like, who is this intruder? Like, oh, I thought you built this thing for him. I don't know what else could happen in this place. Like, you just basically, It's like you set the stage, which I guess that's why the story is called The Masque of the Red Death. Like Masque, MASQUE, is a theatrical form that was really, popular at the time that this story seems to be set, early modernity, late 16th, early 17th centuries. And a masque was basically, first of all, it was a play but performed by nobles, right? That was the big difference in a masque and a regular play. A regular play were commoners acting. A masque was, the nobles, the queen herself gets to be in the play. And it's always a morality tale. And the masques were always designed to prop up a power structure, the reigning monarch or whatever. So here we have the most ironic touch is that the masque doesn't start until the Red Death enters. That's where the play begins. Before that, it's a masquerade. The people are dancing. But the show begins when the play comes in. That's the masque. And also the story itself is the masque, but it's like an anti-masque because it's a masque that doesn't prop up the existing power structure, but literally destroys it. If you can only imagine the scene following the very last line of the play when all these aristocrats start to bleed out through their pores and die within half an hour. That'd be like a Clive Barker level kind of gore scene that he doesn't bother telling us about. But
I love the image at first when he appears, and then Prospero decides, okay, I'm going to confront this, and we're going to get him, and we'll hang him at dawn. And then everyone takes a step towards the Red Death, and then just immediately, okay, no, we can't. Sorry, like we can't fuck with this. And then as he starts walking through all the rooms, the way he describes all the people just clearing a path for him and trying to hug the walls, but there's no escape from this. They're just trying to get as far away as they can, but it's at this point everybody knows they're prolonging the inevitable. They can't repress this anymore, and they can't confront it. It's too late for that. So I love that image.
It's great.
I imagine something like a nautilus shell. One detail of the suite of rooms is, and he says, well, you know, what you find in a lot of grand palaces is one room after another, like boxcars, you know, so that you can throw open the big doors between rooms and see this uninterrupted kind of promenade. And this building isn't like that. This is built very much according to Prospero's peculiar notions.
His love of the bizarre.
Right.
Yes, that's right. And you get at least the way I imagine it is that the rooms curve, or that like you can't see down the hallways because at each point, each room is at an angle to the other. And I like to imagine, although it's nowhere said that this is the case, that the overall plan of this suite of rooms is like a nautilus shell, like a curve with the black room as the core, the center.
Dead center.
That's cool.
Yeah. What do you got? You know, obviously there's lots of imagery and symbolism, and who knows if Poe wanted us to interpret, but I'm going to ask you guys nonetheless. These big tripods of fire, he says there is no lamps or candles. There are these big tripods of fire outside each room shining in. Somehow this was a powerful image to me of the tripods of just torches burning outside and shining in.
Yeah.
He didn't want the light to be direct in the room.
No, the light has to be, it's almost like this artificial sunlight or something. They're creating not just their own kind of safe architectural space on Earth, but they want to create their own reality where like none of the windows, as Phil was saying, open onto the outside world. They all open onto this external kind of corridor that winds its way through the around the rooms. And instead of chandeliers or candelabra, which would also be fire, the light sources are these big tripods outside of each stained glass window shining the light through. And I think the idea is that he wanted each room to be completely, Prospero wanted each room to be so suffused with its color for reasons we're never told.
It's total monochrome.
It's total monochrome. It's
the
like
light source.
Even the light is of that color.
Yeah, it's got to be filtered through the color before they can see it.
You know, Tamler, you were talking earlier about the dreamlike nature of the story, and it reminded you of Lynch, and I agree. But another film that I think has a weird kind of affinity with this is Eyes Wide Shut, which has a similar kind of weird color scheme. And I don't know, the whole film seems designed like it feels indoors. Even when you're in the streets of New York, it feels like a kind of like New York on a set. The whole thing feels closed in and has to do with elites. I don't know. It just occurred to me.
Yeah.
But
gathering for a decadent ball.
With masks.
With no windows. You look at the ball at the beginning of Eyes Wide Shut, there are no windows in this.
Is it a Plato's cave kind of?
I thought that.
Because you have the fire and then the artifacts in front of the fire that is casting the shadow onto the wall, which is all the cave people see. And all they think then is, this is reality. So these people are having, with the artifacts being like the windows and the fire being outside, and they're in this land of illusion, or maybe like in this case, delusion. We are in this multicolored waltzing wonder world, and the things outside can't get in. There's too many things in the way of our I don't know, of our dream, of our
Yeah.
celebration.
Yeah, that sounds. There's a guy, William Irwin Thompson, wrote a bunch of great books. Passed away a few years ago. Really interesting cultural historian, but really far out. And I remember him talking about, modern Hollywood and contemporary, like pop artists as the interior decorators of Plato's cave, which evokes the story. It's like, this is Plato's cave, like pimped out. Like it's. But ultimately, it's the same thing. The light's coming in with a particular color that's controlled, chosen by Prospero as a human being. And then you still have a bunch of artifacts. I mean, people aren't encountering the shadows of the artifacts, but they're encountering selected, chosen, designed artifacts that are there in order to generate a specific experience. So I think the idea of Plato's cave is we perceive one small fragment of reality, but take it to be the whole, right?
And a filtered reality, a reality that isn't actually reality, but
right.
Yeah.
I would say more that we see a part that we mistake for the whole, as opposed to we see an illusion, and there's like this, but that's that metaphysical
interesting
beef I have. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting if you understand, I'm sure, I don't think Poe was thinking about this, but if you understand pure light as a combination of all the colors of the spectrum, he has artificially divided the spectrum.
Going back to something Phil said earlier, like it does seem like a done deal from the start. And it even feels like there's a level of delusion among the people who are attending this ball, but there's also a level of, we know we're close to the end.
Yeah.
This is what you do when the end is near.
Mm-hmm.
Eat, drink, and be merry.
Yeah.
Well, as JF was saying a moment ago, it's like, what did they think was going to happen?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, apropos that, I'm thinking about the setup, the whole, this extraordinary stage that's been set for this to happen. And it seems like this is the only thing that could have happened given the way the stage was set. And I was like, this is the way ceremonial magicians work. Basically, it's like watching a bunch of people unwittingly doing a vast collective magical working for the materialization of an entity that's going to make them bleed out their face.
Yeah. And that's interesting from a psychological viewpoint, because that is something that if you read like psychoanalysis, you'll find all kinds of stories about people setting up their own demise meticulously over months and like putting everything in place so that their life can come and fall apart. I mean, I've seen it personally, like people do that. And you're like, well, it's so weird when Prospero reacts with shock at this intruder. When it's like, dude, this is your show. You've set this up. He has arrived. Like, this is what else could have happened.
That's the beauty of repression.
Yeah, exactly.
You can surprise yourself.
That's really true.
I love Phil, you read the part where he says he out-Heroded Herod. And I love the imagery there. But Herod does leave Jesus untouched. So I don't know whether or not we're supposed to believe that somebody survives at the end of this.
Good point.
The narrator, maybe.
Well, there's
the
always
narrator survived. Yeah. He's like the Alamo. He's the only one who lived to go tell the tale.
Or Ishmael in Moby Dick. It's like, I found a board to cling on to. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I also like, after what Phil read, that he just walks unimpeded past within a yard of the prince's person, and while the vast assembly, as if with one impulse, again, making it seem like this is inside of one person, shrank from the centers of the room to the walls. He made his way uninterruptedly, but with the same solemn and measured step which had distinguished him from the first through the blue chamber to the purple, etc. So like that solemn and measured step also gives that kind of clockwork. Like this is what happens. Just as the clock is going to strike 12, this is what's going to happen. And
I was just going to talk about that, actually. Yeah. I focus on sounds, like where sound becomes an important part of a story. I always notice that. And the description of sound, the description of the bell, of the clock. Like, it's easy to look at the clock and think like, oh, machine for telling time. And so the presence of this ebony clock in the final black chamber is a figure of time. But to me, it's also a figure of a certain kind of sound that completely differs from the other sounds that's not exactly described, but sort of gestured at, a sense of like waltzing, a vertiginous sound of things turning and churning, the way waltzes do. The triple rhythm always sort of propels you forward.
Another Eyes Wide Shut parallel.
Yeah.
Depraved sounding waltzes. Like, this is an old trope in classical music, the idea of waltzes that get out of control, of sound that becomes too vertiginous.
The horses fly off the carousel.
Yeah, exactly. And against that sense of like a whirling sound is the solemn voice of the clock that cuts a swathe through the sound.
The straight line of time, irreversible time, cutting through the circular waltz, right? This kind of like inevitable,
Yeah, and
love
also
the brazen lungs of the clock, a sound which was clear and loud and deep and exceedingly musical, but of so peculiar a note and emphasis that at each lapse of the hour, the musicians of the orchestra were constrained to pause momentarily to hearken the sound. Yeah,
lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
that's great.
And then they nervously laugh a bit once the clock stops, and they're like, anyways. And then they just get
right. That's again. And they know it. It's like every time that clock goes off, it's like, oh, yeah, we're horrible people and we're going to die. Ha ha ha. And they go back to the circles.
You remember the feeling when you're like, I don't party anymore. But when I used to like go out with friends and have a good time for a weekend at a cottage or something, and just the occasional kind of reminder that, you know, this is like, it's a platitude. But the constant kind of like, oh yeah, and then on Monday I have to go back to work, or this will end, this too shall pass. And this kind of feeling of like the spinning feeling of feeling like things are eternal, feeling you're in this moment, touching on eternity, combined with a straight line of time, just cutting right through it and just reminding you that things are just going to irreversibly move on. This story kind of encapsulates that sensation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Vacations are good for that. You're on this vacation with your family. It's the best. You're having so much fun. And then as the day that you're going to leave starts to draw nearer, you start more to have those moments of, oh God, it's really like, I'm going to get back. I'm going to have life coming back to actually haunt
8
me.
a.m. committee meeting.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
And all the little deaths of life.
At which point you will start bleeding out your face.
Dude, I feel that way in committee meetings. It's a great
exactly
description of how I feel. It's like my body is rejecting it. You know, like I just...
The bleeding through the pores is Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah.
You know,
sweating blood. Right. Yeah.
I love that Poe gives us it's almost like he's tossing in a little numerology here when he feels the need to tell us the 3,600 seconds of the time capital T that flies.
Yeah. And there's the idea of the circle there too, 360.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. I want to ask you guys at least one more thing. What do you make of when he says that you would have supposed this guy to be mad until you got to touch and see him, and then you would realize that he's not mad?
Yeah.
Like, what was that line about?
I was wondering if someone would bring that up. I don't know what to make of that line. It's so interesting.
Is it just that he would bring you under his illusion that he's not?
There are some
crazy.
There are some who would have thought him mad. His followers felt that he was not. It was necessary to hear and see and touch him to be sure that he was not, which is another weird reference to Christ in a way, right?
Yeah,
it's like
right.
Doubting Thomas.
The doubting Thomas until you touch him.
But it's just hard to commensurate like this
almost
guy.
like a blasphemous parody.
Yeah,
of
kind
that.
of like Antichrist.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like the bizarro.
Plus,
Jesus.
how does seeing, touching,
it's bizarro.
How does hearing, seeing, and touching someone convince you that someone's not mad? Like, I guess it makes no sense.
Also, what does it mean that he had followers? I mean, he's the prince, right?
Yeah.
He's a duke, but like the followers being like he's kind of also a kind of cult leader.
Yeah.
Maybe he is the magician preparing the chamber for
this.
It makes so much more sense if it is intrapsychic for some reason. I don't know exactly why, but I get that I don't know. There's something little pieces of us that are all insane, but we're somehow grounded as a whole.
I think that is a kind of one of the classic readings of the text, and a lot of Poe stories like, oh, this is a dissociated or kind of like fragmented mind here, which I totally can get behind. But just to hang out with the naive realist reading for a second, I was going to say that if there is a Masque in this, right? If there is an actual play that's not just the story itself, but there is a Masque, and we agree that the Masque begins when the mummer of the Red Death comes in at the end. And what if what if this whole thing was set up by him? What if this is he's playing his part in the play? He's going to run at it with a dagger, then collapse down, and then, so maybe this is a sequel to The Tempest. Maybe this is Prospero finally wreaking vengeance on the entirety of the Italian peninsula. I don't know.
But what I don't get about it as a revenge tale is
Well, he would have summoned the Red Death to begin with.
just
as he does by setting up the space and like creating a clock, the black chamber for it. Like he's
but did
behind
he summon
it,
it for the whole village? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, right. Or whatever
That's
it
my
is.
that's my comic book reading.
And then also kind of gave people a temporary feeling of safety in his palace. What I like about that is that part of his own play is him getting really indignant and like kind of rushing him and charging him and then just immediately die. And like it was a very self-deprecating way to go out.
Oh yeah, I do love this. Like if we're doing the naive realism thing, you know, like there's no way that Red Death could have made it in unless the guy who planned it all let him in, and this was all. And we don't know how much time is supposed to have gone by, but I love that at the stroke of midnight, when they all have enough time to pay attention, is when he constructs the climax of his play.
Yeah.
Can I? I'm wondering if you would mind if I just read the last paragraph, because it's so badass. It's so good.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Please do.
And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood-bedewed halls of their revel, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall. And the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gay. And the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all.
Yeah.
Your cold voice makes it even
I know.
sexier.
Can we hire?
It's like you guys hired Orson Welles here.
It is like, I feel like we should have you, like, I don't know, we'd have to pay you, I guess, to just do all the readings whenever we want to. Because we suck at readings.
I think we both noticed yet the other Jesus reference.
Yeah, Thief in the Night.
Yeah, the Thief in the Night. I didn't realize until this discussion how much Jesus imagery.
The Son of Man will come like a thief in the night. I mean, there's all this Christ.
It really is a
yeah.
magical sort of reverse, you
Yeah.
know? It's like the upside down cross.
Right. Right. A satanic story.
I do like that. I kind of wonder if we're going to go with the idea that Prospero intentionally let in the Red Death, what does that mean about whatever the political message is? Because it's someone who has decided we all deserve to die, and this is an expression of a kind of anguished or crazed remorse? Or is it just, we're going to go out, I want to go out on my own terms in my own insanely theatrical manner?
I would read it in the sense that Prospero isn't even human at all, but rather, you know, in the stories of H.P. Lovecraft, there's a figure, a god or a great old one named Nyarlathotep. That's how I pronounce it. I've heard different pronunciations. Nyarlathotep is this strange wise man, scientist, Tesla / like Akhenaten type of figure that comes out of Egypt, and he wanders around the world showing his technological marvels, and people kind of lose it, and then he just basically brings chaos and destruction, but he does it under the guise of this inventor and this magician, this wizard. So Stephen King, his character of Randall Flagg, who recurs in several of his novels, is by his own admission, Nyarlathotep. So there's a sense in which Prospero could just be the comeuppance of this aristocratic society. And suddenly he's just basically the kind of egregore or collectively created super ego of this ruling class, in which case the story becomes extremely timely, because we can't just blame monarchy now, you know, for this type of elitism. It could happen here. You know, you could have a fully quote unquote democratic society with a very rich oligarchy, which elects the spiritual Nyarlathotep figure that leads them over the edge and into the void. Like, I don't know. I don't think you lose any of the social critique if you take that reading. Which, I mean, we should just stress that this reading is just for shits and giggles, right? Yeah.
Strictly for amusement purposes.
You're right.
Strictly,
But as the sort of natural outcome of the structures that have been set up.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Self-destruction was built in from the beginning.
And
Right.
it's like those billionaires, you know, like all these insecurity were within. Without was the Red Death. I like the idea of one of them just kind of breaking and inviting the without into their bunkers or whatever they have planned, their little armies.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Bezos going to release the gas,
Yeah.
like in the underground bunker.
Yeah. Or you,
and if he's reverse Jesus, he didn't come to save them. He came to destroy them all.
yeah,
You know,
he would be
he's the opposite of the savior.
Antichrist. I mean, that's one of the basic gestures of decadence, which Poe, of course, is one of the great founders of that whole kind of aesthetic movement, is to reverse and invert, not in the name of like, you know, I think that ultimately decadence is kind of a moral, like it has a moral dimension, that aesthetic movement. I don't see it as a kind of nihilistic movement. A lot of those decadent writers ended up becoming very, very religious eventually. But rather it's a way of affirming the moral axis by going to the cesspool at the bottom of it, you know, but you're still affirming some kind of moral horizon or some kind of moral axis by going there. So it's an inversion without being necessarily a kind of rejection of the kind of religious dimension writ large, right?
It's the left-hand path.
Right, left-hand path, right. There's a great essay by David Bentley Hart on Léon Blois, who's one of the great the French decadent writers, and he develops this idea that French decadence was a kind of left-hand path within Catholicism. It's a very interesting essay.
Cool. Well, this was a lot of fun. We should wrap up. I see Phil let you get some tea. And, but this was so much fun. I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Super
great
fun.
story.
I can't believe this much time.
I just looked at the time as
I know.
You see
the ebony clock. The ebony clock has
exactly.
Right.
So thanks so much, you guys, for coming on. And
thank you guys.
Yeah. And,
thank you so much.
Hope we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
And, and we'll talk soon, surely.
Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
The great Masque has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have.
Pay no attention to that man.
Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.